Okay, so in this first video, we're just going to introduce you to the SPSS environment, just so you can see what it looks like, and we'll also go through some simple data entry procedures. So the first thing is to start SPSS up. So you go to your Start menu in the bottom left-hand corner, find SPSS in Programs, and then find the PASW Statistics 18 icon, which is a little red square with a graph, and click on that. And it will start. So the first thing you'll see is this screen. So if you have an existing set of SPSS files that you want to look at, then you can open them from here. You can open up Excel files directly into SPSS if you want to. It's not something that I'll go through, but if you want to explore that, then be my guest. Usually though, what we'll do is type in some new data. So what you'll see is that SPSS is essentially a spreadsheet. So it has rows down the side and columns across the top. And the rows down the side, they will represent different people that you've collected data from, and each column represents a different kind of data point about each of those people. So I can enter numbers in here, and that's my data. So when you want to look at your data, click on Data View. If you want to name the different columns, which is always a good idea so you know what you're looking at, then you go to Variable View. And you can enter the names here. So let's start by putting in some data. So I've got my Excel spreadsheet here. So this is some data from a previous class of speech therapy students. So you can see that I've got the number of people. So I've given my participants just a simple number here, and I've got 32 in total. I asked them for their height in centimetres, their hair colour, and also the month of their birthday. So first of all, I want to take their height and copy and paste it into SPSS. So I'm going to highlight all those numbers, Control C, and I'm just going to Control V to paste. Now, SPSS sometimes gets a little bit stroppy when you're cutting and pasting from Excel. So the easiest thing to do is, if it doesn't work the first time, is just right click on the column and clear, like I did then. Go back, and we'll just try again. Control V to paste. There we go. So there's all the heights, and you can see that I've got 32, which is the number that I should have. So always check you've got the right numbers, just to make sure your copying and pasting went well. So now I want to name this variable. At the moment it's just got a kind of arbitrary name that SPSS has given it. So I go into Variable View and I go into Name, and I'll just click and start typing. So I'm going to call it height, and I'll call it centimetres, but I've left a space, which SPSS doesn't like. So it tells me there's an illegal character. So you can use an underscore, and then it will be happy. The data I've put in is numbers, so that's fine. I can leave it as numeric. You can put in strings, so text if you want, or dates, or various other things. But if you want data you can actually analyze, it needs to be numbers. I don't have decimals, don't have decimal places, I just have centimeters, so I don't want any decimals. And I know that this height measure is an interval measure, so I leave it with scale. If it's interval or scale, it's scale in SPSS, and ordinal or nominal are other options. So there's my height. Now I want to enter in the hair colour. So you can see that I've got the blonde, brown, red, and then I think there was black, and also another category as well. As I said before, you could put the text into SPSS, but it wouldn't be very useful because SPSS wouldn't be able to do anything with it and tell you, for example, how many people had each hair colour. So what I've done in the Excel sheet is I've recoded it so that I've got numbers for each of those labels. So 1 is brown, 2 is blonde, 3 is red, 4 is black, and 5 is other. And those are the numbers that I'll copy and paste into SPSS. So I'll highlight that column. Control C to copy, and Control V to paste. So there are all my numbers. And again, we'll just check. Yep, I've got 32. Okay. So you go into your Variable View, and this time we'll call it hair colour. Now we know that hair colour is a nominal variable, so make sure that you tell SPSS that it's nominal. If it was ordinal, we'd say it was ordinal. If it was shoe size or something like that. And I also want SPSS to know what these numbers refer to, because the numbers are just arbitrary. 3 could have been blonde and 5 could have been brown. It doesn't really matter. So in order for SPSS to do that, you click on the values box and it then gives you this little space. So you can put 1, brown, add. 2, blonde, add. 3 was red, 4 was black, and 5 is other. So there we are. If I wanted to change them or remove them, then I can just highlight them. Okay, but I'm happy with those, so I'm going to click OK. And now you'll see that SPSS has stored them there. If we go back to data view, you'll see that SPSS has very helpfully changed the numbers into the value labels, so I know what the numbers mean. If this doesn't happen, then you need to go to view and make sure that value labels is switched on. If I take that off, you'll see that it goes back to the original numbers, which isn't very informative. So view, value label, and there we go. So for each person, each participant, I've got their height and their hair colour. So now the next thing to do is to save the data to make sure that I don't lose it. So File, Save As, and you should just save it somewhere sensible. So I've created a folder called Statistics Work, and I've already got an SPSS file in there, so I'm just going to call this Class Demographics, and save. When you do anything in SPSS, save anything or do any analysis, it will show you the results of that in this output file here. So I want to save that as well. Again, just save it somewhere sensible, so into your student drive. And I'll call it Class Demographics, so it's worth saving them with the same name so you know what goes with what. The spreadsheet file has a .sav extension, so where your data actually is, and your output file has this .spv extension. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So if I go and find those now, so here we've got the .sav files, which are where the data actually is, and here we've got the output files. Okay. And that's it for entering data. The one thing that's very important to remember is that a row corresponds to a participant. So one row is one person, and the columns are your different points of data that relate to that person. So always remember that when you're entering data, because that's how SPSS treats it, with a couple of exceptions that we'll come on to when we do later analyses.